Open. No music, just the sound of a gavel, sharp and final, cutting through silence like a blade. The camera drifts slowly across the courtroom, mahogany benches, high ceilings with amber light falling through tall windows, the smell of wood polish and old authority. And then we find her. Eleanor Voss-Ashworth sits alone at the left table. Alone. Not alone in the sense that the room is empty. The room is full. Marcus has 2 attorneys, a paralegal, and 3 character witnesses arranged behind him like a personal army. His side of the courtroom holds people, colleagues, associates, a business partner in the front row who keeps checking his phone with the bored confidence of a man who already knows the outcome. Eleanor's side holds 2 empty chairs and a glass of water nobody filled. She has 1 folder on the table before her. Cream-colored. Closed. Her hands are folded on top of it, still, pale, composed, like a woman who has been practicing stillness for so long that it has become her native language. Marcus leans toward his lead attorney and says something. The attorney smiles. They do not lower their voices particularly. She came alone, Marcus murmurs, and there is a quality in his voice, not quite surprise, not quite pity, something closer to amusement. The quiet pleasure of a predator who looked up and found no one standing between himself and the thing he intends to take. Eleanor does not look at him. She looks at the judge's bench, empty still, the proceedings not yet called to order, and her jaw is set with a precision that speaks of enormous internal effort. Her storm-gray eyes are clear. They are not the eyes of a woman who has been defeated. But no one in this room is reading her eyes. They are reading the empty chairs beside her. The clerk shuffles papers. A bailiff stands near the door. The gallery murmurs. Marcus adjusts his crimson tie. And Eleanor Voss-Ashworth breathes, slowly, quietly, with the measured calm of someone who knows something that this room does not yet know, and she waits. Clock on the wall ticks. Once. Twice. The Bemra holds on her face, alone, unhurried, unbroken, as the morning light falls across her like something borrowed from a different story, one where she wins. Anchoric score, a single cello, mournful and dignified, beneath the narration. The proceedings are called to order. And what follows is not simply a legal hearing. What follows is a performance, orchestrated by Marcus Voss and conducted with the gleeful precision of a man who has spent 14 months building this particular stage. His lead attorney, a man named Clifford Hale, 53, silver-tongued, famous for dismantling women in divorce courts with a smile that never quite reached his eyes, stands and begins. Your Honor, my client, Mr. Marcus Voss, seeks today to finalize the dissolution of assets from his 12-year marriage to Miss Eleanor Voss, formerly Ashworth, a marriage which, as the evidence will demonstrate, Mr. Voss alone sustained financially, emotionally, and professionally. Eleanor's pen moves across the legal pad before her. Steady. Slow. She writes something and underlines it once. No one can see what she has written. Clifford Hale continues. He describes Eleanor as, and he uses these words without flinching, a woman of limited independent means whose social standing and lifestyle were entirely derived from her husband's professional success. The gallery does not gasp. That is perhaps the most devastating part. The gallery does not gasp because half of them believe it, and the other half did not come here to defend her. Marcus's business partner in the front row uncrosses his legs and crosses them the other way. He has the look of a man watching a necessary unpleasantness, not particularly troubled by it. Then comes the first witness. Patricia Wren, former neighbor, present at every social event Marcus ever hosted, a woman who wore Eleanor's friendship like a borrowed coat and returned it the moment the marriage collapsed. Patricia takes the stand in a cream blouse and the particular expression of someone who has convinced themselves that what they are doing is honest. She testifies that Eleanor seemed unhappy in the marriage for years, which, stripped of context, becomes evidence of instability rather than what it actually was, evidence of a woman married to a man who lied. She testifies that Eleanor never seemed to work, never seemed to contribute in any concrete way. Eleanor writes another line on her legal pad. Clifford Hale then produces a series of financial documents suggesting that the Voss family estate, the properties, the investments, the liquid assets, were built exclusively by Marcus. He pauses after presenting each document. A calculated pause. The kind that says, look at this. Look at how thoroughly she has nothing. And then he does the thing that costs the most. He turns toward Eleanor's side of the room, the two empty chairs, the untouched water glass, the single folder, and he spreads his hands in a gesture so studied it must have been rehearsed. Your Honor, he says, we note for the record that Miss Voss-Ashworth has chosen to represent herself today, without counsel or support, which perhaps tells us everything we need to know about the credibility of any counterclaim she might intend to make. Laughter. Not loud, not cruel in its volume, but present, a ripple of quiet, condescending amusement that moves through Marcus's side of the gallery like a small, satisfied wave. Marcus himself does not laugh. He is too strategic for that. He simply straightens his cufflink and looks at the judge with the expression of a man who is waiting for something already decided to be made official. Eleanor looks up from her legal pad. For a single, suspended moment, she looks across the room at Marcus directly, the first time their eyes have met all morning, and his are dark and dismissive and certain, and hers are storm gray and still, and reading something in him that he cannot read in himself. He looks away first. He does not know why. The cello in the score plays one long, aching note. And Eleanor turns back to her folder, opens it to the first page, and in the silence of that courtroom, surrounded by his allies and her empty chairs, she straightens her spine by exactly 1 degree. It is the smallest possible rebellion. It is absolute. The music shifts. Quiet, layered strings. A melody that suggests depth beneath still water. History beneath the present moment. What no one in that courtroom knows, what Marcus has convinced himself he has thoroughly researched and thoroughly dismissed, is who Eleanor Ashworth was before she became Eleanor Voss. Let us go back. 38 years ago, in a house that sits on 42 acres of private land in the Ashworth Valley, a house that has appeared in architectural journals and been visited by heads of state, a girl was born to Reginald Ashworth and his late wife, Catherine. Reginald Ashworth. The name, if you move in certain circles, requires no elaboration. If you do not move in those circles, then understand this: Reginald Ashworth built the Ashworth Group from the inheritance of a modest family law firm into one of the most diversified private holding companies in the country. Real estate, infrastructure, media, pharmaceutical distribution. The Ashworth name is on 3 university buildings, a children's hospital wing, and a piece of legislation that reformed corporate taxation in this country 11 years ago. He is not famous in the way celebrities are, famous, visible, loud, and easily searched. He is powerful in the way that truly powerful people are powerful, quietly, structurally, in the architecture of things rather than their surface. Eleanor grew up understanding this distinction. She was educated at Whitmore Hall, then Oxford, then a postgraduate degree in international law that she completed in 2 years rather than 3. She was, by any measure, a woman of extraordinary formation, intellectual, principled, and trained from childhood in the Ashworth family philosophy. Never show your full hand until the moment when showing it is most devastating. And then she met Marcus Voss. He was charming. He was ambitious. He was the kind of man who made you feel, in his presence, like the world was moving and you were lucky to be moving with it. Eleanor was 32, and in the middle of a life she had constructed with extraordinary care, and Marcus arrived in it like a season change, sudden, disorienting, beautiful. She chose him. And her father, to his eternal credit, said very little. Reginald Ashworth did not forbid the marriage. He sat across from Marcus at dinner once, looked at him for a long time with those ice-blue eyes, and said quietly, "I hope you understand what you are holding." Marcus had laughed. He thought it was a compliment. It was a warning. For 12 years, Eleanor Voss quietly managed the charitable arm of the Voss family's public image, raised 2 children, and maintained, deliberately, with full conscious intention, a professional profile that read as modest. She had not hidden her family background. She had simply never weaponized it. She was Eleanor Voss. She made her own choices. She carried her own name with the quiet confidence of a woman who did not need everyone to know where she came from. But Marcus, in his 14 months of legal campaign, made a catastrophic error. He looked at Eleanor's professional profile, modest, deliberate, and he concluded that she was what she appeared to be. A dependent wife. A woman of borrowed status. He did not call Reginald Ashworth. He did not research the Ashworth group. He did not ask a single question about the woman he had married beyond what she had chosen to show him. Eleanor had known this hearing was coming for 8 months. She had discussed it with her father, who had offered, immediately, firmly, with the quiet authority of a man who does not ask twice, to deploy every resource the Ashworth family possessed. Legal teams, financial analysts, his personal attorney, a woman named Catherine Briggs, who had never lost a property case in 30 years. Eleanor had said, "Not yet." Her grandmother Vivienne had called and said in her precise, unhurried way, "Eleanor, say the word." Eleanor had said, "Not yet, Grand Marie." She needed to walk in alone. She needed to let Marcus believe, truly believe in his bones, that she had no one. Because she understood something about men like Marcus Voss, they are most dangerous when they are cautious, and most destructive when they are certain. She needed him certain. She needed him standing in that courtroom with his chest open and his guard completely down at the exact moment when the door opened. And so she had come alone. She had sat with her empty chairs and her single folder and her glass of water that no one had filled, and she had allowed every person in that room to believe the story Marcus was telling about her. Because she was not fighting today with their weapons, she was fighting with truth. And the truth, the full, architectural, ancestral, Ashworth bloodline truth, was coming through that door. The strings build, 1 note longer, deeper, more insistent. Then, silence. The chord drops to near silence, just the faintest pulse, like a heartbeat building. By 11 o'clock in the morning, Marcus Voss has the look of a man who is already composing his victory speech. Clifford Hale has entered into evidence 3 property valuations, a 10-year business summary of the Voss family enterprise, and a personal financial statement that paints Eleanor as a woman whose net worth, independent of the marriage, is negligible. He has done this methodically, each document placed before the court with the careful deliberateness of a man laying bricks. The judge, Honorable Simon Price, 61, a man with a reputation for thoroughness and an impatience for theatrical legal proceedings, reviews each document with his reading glasses halfway down his nose. Marcus leans toward his second attorney and murmurs something. The attorney nods. Marcus sits back. He glances at Eleanor's empty chairs once more. And something extraordinary happens in that glance, something small, almost imperceptible, but the camera catches it. A flicker, just a flicker, buried beneath the confidence, beneath the certainty, something that might, in another man, be called a premonition. But Marcus Voss has not survived 44 years, built a company from borrowed confidence and borrowed money, and dismantled 3 business rivals by listening to premonitions. He drowns the flicker in certainty and turns back to Clifford Hale. Meanwhile, Eleanor has been writing in her folder with slow, methodical strokes. She has not objected to a single document. She has not called for a recess. She has not looked visibly distressed. Clifford Hale has noticed this. It unsettles him in a way he cannot quite articulate. "She's too calm," he had said to Marcus during the brief morning recess in a tone designed to sound like professional observation rather than what it actually was, the early stirring of unease. Marcus had smiled. "She's performing dignity. Let her. It doesn't change the numbers." But even performing dignity requires a source, and something about the quality of Eleanor's stillness, the precision of it, the structure of it, suggests that she is not performing at all. Outside the courtroom, in the marble corridor lined with old photographs of jurists and legal precedents framed in dark wood, a corridor that has absorbed a century of decisions, both just and unjust, a bailiff's radio crackles quietly. He steps away from the door. 2 floors below, in the building's main entrance hall, the security desk receives a phone call. The call lasts 45 seconds. The security officer, a man named Officer Brandt, who has worked this courthouse for 19 years and seen every manner of proceeding, sets down the phone and straightens his uniform with the instinct of a man who has just been told something that requires straightening. He picks up his radio. "We have VIP visitors incoming," he says quietly. "Clear the main corridor approach, immediately." In the courtroom, Eleanor's pen pauses on the page. She does not look at the door. But the faintest thing, the very faintest shadow of something, crosses her face. Not relief, not triumph. Something older and quieter than either of those things. The heartbeat pulse in the score grows 1 degree louder. Falls away entirely. Silence, just breath, and the weight of the room. Then comes the moment that costs the most to watch. Clifford Hale calls his final witness before the asset division determination. He calls Marcus Voss's own mother, a woman named Constance Voss, 70, silver-haired, dressed in pale lavender, who takes the stand with the expression of a woman who has rehearsed her grief and found it does not quite fit, but wears it anyway. Constance testifies that Eleanor was never truly committed to the family, that she was independent to the point of coldness, that Marcus had given her everything and received very little in return. The room listens. And then Clifford Hale, with the timing of a man who has done this many times, says, "Your Honor, if I might draw the court's attention once more to the respondent's table, Miss Voss-Ashworth sits today without legal counsel, without family support, without a single character witness. In 12 years of marriage, it appears she cultivated no meaningful relationships, no professional standing, and no support system of any kind." He pauses. One must ask whether this isolation is the product of the marriage, or whether it reflects the kind of woman Eleanor Voss has always been. The room is quiet, and Eleanor, for the first time all morning, feels the full weight of that silence land on her. Not because she believes what Clifford Hale has said. She does not believe a word of it. But there is a cruelty in being described out loud, in public, before a court of law, described as small, as empty, as unworthy, that no amount of strategic preparation fully insulates you from. She is a human being, and she is sitting alone. Her children are with her sister this morning. Her friends, most of whom Marcus had managed to socially maneuver over years of careful cultivation, have not come. Her table has 2 empty chairs that feel, in this moment, like the courtroom's only commentary on her life. She looks down at her folder. And for just one moment, one single moment that the camera holds with extraordinary tenderness and respect, her composure costs her something visible. Not tears, not collapse, just a trembling at the corner of her mouth that she stills within a single breath. Her hand presses flat against the closed folder on the table. She breathes. And in that breath, in that pressed hand and still jaw and storm gray eyes that have gone very, very deep, she makes a choice that is not strategy and not performance and not theater. It is simply Eleanor Ashworth deciding that she will not break, not because anyone is watching. Because she is who she is. And who she is has a bloodline 3 generations deep that has never, not once, bent the knee to men like Marcus Foss. Then, from the corridor outside the great mahogany doors, the unmistakable, measured sound of footsteps on marble.
Multiple sets. Coming closer.
The music does not begin with grandeur. It begins with a single, low-sustained note, barely audible, the kind of note a cello makes when it is gathering itself for something enormous. It builds so slowly that by the time the room registers it, it has already been building for 30 seconds. The doors open, not with a slam, not with drama in the cheap sense of the word. They open with a deliberate, unhurried swing of doors that have been pushed by someone who was not asking the room's permission to enter it. Every head turns. It is a reflex, the instinctive human response to the opening of a door during stillness. People turn, expecting a latecomer, a clerk, a bailiff with paperwork. Their faces are already arranging themselves into mild, distracted irritation. And then they see. Reginald Ashworth enters first. He is wearing the navy double-breasted suit and his family's 50-year-old watch, and he walks the way he has walked every room for 7 decades. Not with aggression, not with performance, but with the absolute immovable certainty of a man who has never once needed to assert his right to be somewhere. The courtroom's amber light falls across him, and he does not acknowledge it because he does not require the room's light to illuminate him. He carries his own. His ice-blue eyes find Eleanor immediately. They do not waver. They do not survey the opposition. They go to his daughter, sitting alone at that table with her pressed hand and her cream folder, and they say something that requires no translation and no courtroom transcript. I am here. Behind him, Vivienne Ashworth Cole. She is smaller than the room expects. She enters beside her son, and the contrast is cinematic. His great height, her compact, perfect stature, and her carved mahogany cane makes contact with the marble floor with a sound that carries. Tap. One sound. Clean and deliberate. The gallery nearest the door physically leans back. Vivienne does not look at Marcus. She does not look at Clifford Hale. She does not look at the judge, though she will in her own time. She looks at Eleanor, and she lifts her chin in a gesture so small it is almost private, a grandmother to a granddaughter, a matriarch to her heir that says, "Straighten your spine, my darling, we are here now." Eleanor's eyes fill. She does not allow them to spill. But anyone watching her face in this moment, in this exact suspended infinite moment, sees the precise expression of a woman who has been carrying something so heavy for so long that the arrival of help does not feel like relief so much as the permission to feel how heavy it was. She straightens her spine, not by 1 degree this time, fully, completely, the spine of an Ashworth. And then Senator Harold Ashworth enters. He is followed by 2 members of his legislative staff and his personal attorney, Catherine Briggs, the woman Eleanor's father had offered 8 months ago and Eleanor had said not yet. Catherine Briggs is 58, no nonsense, with a briefcase that could contain either documents or a small judicial apocalypse. She moves to Eleanor's table and sets it down with the comfortable authority of a woman who has done this 1,000 times and won 1,000 times, and she takes the chair on Eleanor's right, and she opens the briefcase, and she begins organizing papers with the unhurried efficiency of someone who arrived exactly when they intended to arrive. The empty chairs at Eleanor's table are empty no longer. The gallery on Marcus's side has gone very, very quiet. Clifford Hale is standing. He had been mid-gesture, some rhetorical flourish in the direction of the judge, and his hand is still partially raised in the air, frozen in the particular way of a man whose words have left him between one breath and the next. He looks at the door. He looks at Reginald Ashworth, and his face, his carefully composed, professionally smooth, $60 haircut face, does something it has not done in a courtroom in 30 years. It loses color. The judge, Honorable Simon Price, has removed his reading glasses and is watching the entrance with the expression of a man who has just had his own premonition confirmed. His eyes move from the visitors to Marcus Voss, and something in his expression, not bias, not unfairness, but the simple recalibration of a trained legal mind, shifts. Marcus Voss. Let us describe Marcus Voss in this moment with the exactness it deserves. He is sitting. He has been sitting with the loose, confident ease of a man watching his own celebration commence, one arm resting on the back of his chair, the slight forward lean of someone enjoying a performance he produced. His crimson tie is straight, his jaw is set. He is, by every visible measure, exactly what he has been all morning. Until he turns. He turns because his lead attorney's paralegal, a young woman named Sonia, who has worked for Clifford Hale for 2 years and whose face does not typically communicate distress, touches his arm. He turns because the gallery has gone quiet. He turns because something in the air of the room has changed, the atmospheric pressure of it, the alignment of it, and some part of his body, smarter than his certainty, registers it before his eyes confirm it. He turns. And he sees Reginald Ashworth, and the world Clifford Hale built for him this morning, document by document, brick by brick, makes the sound of something enormous settling. The crack is not audible, but everyone in that room hears it. Marcus's arm comes off the back of the chair. He sits forward. His jaw, which has been set all morning, does a thing it has not done in this courtroom. It opens, slightly, with the involuntary physics of a man whose certainty has just evacuated the premises. His dark eyes move from Reginald Ashworth to Vivienne Ashworth Cole, to Senator Harold Ashworth, to Catherine Briggs, already seated at Eleanor's table, and with each face they land on, something in those dark eyes goes further away. Reginald Ashworth reaches the bar of the court. He stops. He does not attempt to breach the boundary of the court floor uninvited, because Reginald Ashworth has spent 72 years understanding exactly which rules exist to be respected and which exist to be navigated. He stands at the gallery's front row, directly, precisely behind Eleanor's table, and he places his hands on the railing. And he looks at Marcus Voss. It is not a threatening look. It contains no rage, no performative fury, none of the melodrama that smaller men might reach for. It is simply the look of a man who has lived long enough and quietly enough to know that his mere presence in this room has already said everything that needed to be said. It says, "I know what you did. I know who she is. And I have come to make sure this room knows both of those things before it makes a single decision." Behind him, Vivienne Ashworth Cole sits, not because she is frail, but because she has chosen a seat directly in the judge's sightline, and she folds her hands over her mahogany cane, and she waits with the patience of a woman who has watched justice move slowly for 84 years and has learned that it does, eventually, move. Senator Harold Ashworth takes a seat beside his mother. The bailiff near the door has straightened his uniform without being aware of it. The court clerk has stopped typing. Even the gallery on Marcus's side, those colleagues and associates and the business partner who was checking his phone, is still. The phone is in a pocket now. The room has reoriented. Like a compass that has found north. Eleanor turns in her chair and looks at her father. He looks back at her with ice-blue eyes that are, in this moment, the warmest things in the room. He gives her one nod. The cello hits its full note, deep, sustained, triumphant in the way that truth is triumphant, not loud and crashing but absolute and resonant, the kind of note that feels every corner of a room and does not apologize for it. And Eleanor Voss-Ashworth, Eleanor Ashworth, turns back to face the court. Catherine Briggs places a document in front of her. Eleanor picks up her pen. And she begins. The score shifts. Precise, deliberate, a legal march with strings. The energy of the room has completely inverted. Catherine Briggs rises from Eleanor's table with the unhurried authority of a woman who has been preparing this moment for 8 months. "Your Honor," she says, and her voice is clear and even and carries the particular texture of someone accustomed to being listened to. "My name is Catherine Briggs. I represent Miss Eleanor Ashworth, legally and correctly. Her name has never been anything other than Ashworth, and I apologize for the somewhat theatrical nature of our arrival. We wish to allow opposing counsel to make their case without interruption." She allows a pause. It lasts approximately 3 seconds. In those 3 seconds, Clifford Hale's left hand, resting on the table beside his documents, closes into something approaching a fist. Catherine Briggs opens her briefcase. What comes out is not a single document or a financial statement or a property valuation. What comes out is a portfolio. Leather-bound, 3 inches thick, with the Ashworth Group letterhead embossed in gold on its cover. "I would like to enter into evidence," she continues, "the full financial disclosure of Miss Eleanor Ashworth's independent asset portfolio, assets established in her own name before the marriage to Mr. Voss, maintained throughout the marriage in an independent trust, and entirely unconnected to the Voss family estate." She places the portfolio before the court clerk, calmly, without theater. Marcus Voss's second attorney leans toward him and whispers something. Marcus stares at the portfolio. He does not respond. Furthermore, Catherine Briggs continues, "I would like to enter a complete audit of the Voss family estate's corporate history, which demonstrates, with documentary precision, that 3 of the 8 primary investment properties Marcus Voss is claiming sole ownership of were purchased using seed capital from the Ashworth Group's private family fund, a loan made in good faith at the outset of the marriage, on the understanding that it would be credited as a marital asset." Clifford Hale is on his feet. "Objection, Your Honor. This is the first time opposing counsel has raised any. It is the first time opposing counsel has appeared, Mr. Hale," Judge Price says, with the tone of a man who has made his own recalibrations and intends to proceed accordingly. "And I will remind you that the court's purpose is truth, not timing." Objection overruled. Continue, Miss Briggs. Marcus Voss pushes his chair back slightly from the table. It is a small movement, barely an inch, but in the context of the morning, it is seismic. He has been moving forward all day. This is the first time he has moved back. His business partner in the front row, who had his phone out 2 hours ago with the easy confidence of a man watching a foregone conclusion, is now very still. He is looking at Senator Harold Ashworth. The senator is looking directly back at him with the neutral expression of a man who remembers faces. The business partner puts his phone away. Marcus's mother, Constance Voss, who testified in pale lavender about Eleanor's coldness and commitment, has gone very white in the gallery. She is looking at Vivienne Ashworth Cole, at that magnificent 84-year-old face and those steady sapphire eyes, and something in Constance's expression has shifted from rehearsed grief to simple, unadorned reckoning. Marcus speaks. For the first time all morning, Marcus Voss speaks directly to Eleanor. "Ellie, it is barely a sound, a syllable and a half. The beginning of something that does not know how to complete itself. The voice of a man who has called her by that name for 12 years, affectionately, dismissively, casually, and who has now reached for it like a lifeline in 8 feet of water." Eleanor does not turn. She is reading a document that Catherine Briggs has placed before her. Her pen is moving. She does not turn. And in that refusal, in that elegant, absolute, preoccupied non-response, the courtroom witnesses something that Clifford Hale's documents, for all their precision, could never have quantified. The complete withdrawal of Eleanor Ashworth's attention from Marcus Voss, not in anger, not in triumph, in simple, final disengagement. She is done. And the room knows it. The score underscores this with a single resolving chord, not triumphant, exactly. Something deeper, something like justice finding its proper shape. The score brightens, slowly, genuinely, like morning light returning after a long night. 3 weeks after the hearing, Eleanor Ashworth stands on the steps of the courthouse. She is wearing deep navy, the Ashworth color, and her chestnut hair is down for the first time. It catches the autumn light, and it is, the camera notes, extraordinarily beautiful. Beside her stands Reginald Ashworth, his hand at her shoulder. Beside him, Vivienne with her mahogany cane, her double strand of pearls, and the expression of a woman who has just watched her granddaughter win and finds it exactly as satisfying as she always knew it would be. The settlement that Catherine Briggs secured was not merely fair. It was, in the precise, legal, documented language of the court, a complete and thorough recognition of Miss Eleanor Ashworth's contributions, entitlements, and independent standing. The Voss estate's investment properties, 3 of which carried Ashworth Group seed capital, were restructured accordingly. The children's primary residence goes to Eleanor. The family's financial record was corrected, publicly, in court documents. Marcus Voss's business partner has quietly withdrawn from a joint venture that, as of last Tuesday, is under regulatory review. And Marcus himself, that man in the charcoal suit and a crimson tie who had stood in his own courtroom that morning like a man at his own coronation, left through a side door. He did not say goodbye to Clifford Hale. He did not make a statement to anyone waiting in the corridor. He simply left. And Eleanor watched him go, not with satisfaction, not with sorrow, with the quiet recognition of a woman who understands that some people will spend their entire lives mistaking visibility for power, and loudness for strength, and isolation for weakness. She was never alone. She was choosing her moment, and there is a difference, an enormous, life-altering, karmic difference between a person who is alone and a person who has chosen to stand alone until the right time. The member rises slowly, pulling back from the courthouse steps, Eleanor, her father, her grandmother, the autumn light, until the frame holds all of them, small, against the great stone building, but together, unassailable. The world will tell you that a woman who stands alone has no one. But sometimes the most powerful thing a woman can do is make her enemies believe she is without support, right up until the moment she doesn't need them to believe anything anymore. Never underestimate a woman who knows who she is. Never underestimate her bloodline. And never, never mistake her stillness for absence. Score swells to its fullest, most luminous moment, then fades. Question 1. When Eleanor refused to turn around when Marcus whispered her name, what did that moment make you feel? And do you think it was the most powerful act of the entire episode? Question 2. Reginald Ashworth waited for Eleanor to give him the word before entering that courtroom. Do you think a parent stepping back and letting their child choose the moment is the highest form of love or the hardest? Question 3. Eleanor spent 8 months in legal preparation knowing her family could arrive at any time. Was her decision to face the court alone first a sign of extraordinary strength or extraordinary pain, or both? If Eleanor's quiet, dignified, family-backed triumph moved you today, hit that subscribe button for Karma's Heiress, because we tell the stories of women who carry their bloodline into every battle they fight. Ring the bell. Share this with someone who needs to see that being underestimated is sometimes the greatest tactical advantage of all. And remember, karma doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it walks in on marble floors in a navy suit with a 50-year-old watch and ice blue eyes. And when it does, the whole room knows. Karma's Heiress Premium Channel Nen Episode 7 and a son threw his father out after taking everything. In court, the truth destroyed him.